Welcome to Transcend Matter. This podcast aims to explore the fascinating interplay of materials that not only redefine aesthetics but address pressing human and environmental challenges. Every episode is brought to you by me, Emma Wright, a material developer and researcher, to converse with material experts from either an academic, designer, or research background. We'll be diving into their practice, exploring cross-collaboration and their connection with materials. Welcome to Transcend Matter. Today's episode is with Shay Sethi, co-founder of Ambercycle, a company rethinking how we can deal with synthetic textiles. So Ambercycle began back in 2015 when Shay and his college roommate, Moby Ahmed, were still students. They were asking a big question. If most garments end up incinerated or in landfill, and polyester dominates our wardrobes, how can we redesign the system so synthetics don't just become waste? Their answer is what they call molecular regeneration, breaking down garments to their molecular building blocks, purifying them, and rebuilding them as new high-performance fibres. The result is cycora, a regenerated polyester that keeps the quality brands expect while tackling fashion's polyester problem head-on. In our conversation, Shay takes us through that journey, from the intensity of those early university years, which he describes as the highlight of his life, to the hard realities of building a materials company in today's world. He speaks with a rare mix of vulnerability and determination, showing what it really takes to create innovation in this space. So what really stood out to me is how many layers there are behind the science. It's not just about technology, it's persistence, partnerships, timing, and the unseen challenges that brands often overlook. Shay's grit and sense of purpose shine through. He truly feels this is what he's here to do. Help solve the polyester crisis, which is quickly becoming one of the world's major material challenges. So I found this conversation both humbling and inspiring, and I think you'll feel the same. Shay's energy is contagious, and Ambercycle's story is only just beginning. So let's dive in. Here's my conversation with Shay. The last time I met you was at FFE. In fact, it was the first time I met you, I believe.
Yep.
And how did you find that show in London? For me, that's a great show, like meeting new innovators, and everyone's pretty chilled. It's not a traditional trade show. How did you guys find it?
Yeah, Future Fabrics Expo, FFE, is really great for us. The focus on new fabrics is, from my observation, quite unique. And it is really nice to also have more of a curated set of experiences for an attendee that feels different than a lot of the different conferences. But what I've observed in the apparel industry is every conference has its own angle.
Yeah.
And so it was a great experience. Also, being in London, more exposure to the Europe-centric brands is always nice for us. Being out in Los Angeles, kind of far away from a lot of the European zeitgeist in fashion world. So it was nice to also get some perspectives on what's going on in the European Union and with textiles regulation, legislation, and also the brand sentiment. So it was great. It was a great couple days, and also Climate Week was that week too. So great to see capital partners, etc.
Yeah, amazing. It's a really good energy, I find, that show, because it's a mixture of new connections, people who genuinely want to learn and sort of spread that knowledge, which I always find really, invigorating, I guess.
Yep.
So I've been following you guys for quite a while, and it's been really amazing to see your journey throughout the years. And I guess it'd be quite nice just to kickstart this episode, especially for listeners who don't know too much about Ambercycle and your product.
So what we do at Ambercycle is we take old clothing that would normally go to landfill. We have a process that separates at the molecular level all of the different fibers, cotton, polyester, nylon, spandex, all of those materials get separated, and then we can recover the individual components and remake new yarns, fabrics, and garments. So instead of relying on natural resources from the earth, we can rely on our old clothing as a resource for the future. So this was an idea that we started in 2015, which feels like decades ago. And this year will actually be our 10-year anniversary, and it feels like definitely a journey, but very exciting to see that idea start to come to life, not just with us, but with the entire apparel industry. It's very important.
And congratulations for your 10-year anniversary. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost here actually. Almost actually next week is the
Wow. Okay. You guys got anything special planned for it?
we do, we do. We will
Yeah.
be throwing a small thing here, but
Yeah.
probably towards the end of the year, doing something a little larger, which is it's a great milestone to celebrate, not just for Moby, my co-founder, and I, but the entire team. It's really a group effort to build something like this, and yeah, it should be a good celebration. I think a good party.
Well, I look forward to hearing about it because I'm assuming it'll be in LA, not London, but that's fine.
Yeah, it was in LA, but there's LA to London direct flights now, so I guess there always have been, but yeah, there's yeah, it'll be probably in LA, but we're growing globally now, so who
Well,
knows?
exciting times. So, your signature product at the moment is cycora. Have I pronounced that correctly?
Yeah, cycora, and the rationale behind cycora is so if we go back to 2015, Moby, my co-founder, and I were roommates in college, and we wanted to solve this textile to textile problem, and we have technical backgrounds, so went through the process of developing the technology, separating the molecules, remaking new yarns, new fabrics, new garments. But once we developed this technology, which took about 5 years to develop, just hardcore R&D in the lab, working 24/7, the challenge was once we had these new yarns, the core problem is when you walk into a store and you pick up a garment, how do you know that that garment is good for the world around you? And what would be helpful for us is if there was a way to educate the customer in the customer experience, this garment is actually made with materials that are good for the world. And so we started thinking about what would be cool, what would we actually be interested in buying and learning more about. And that's how cycora was born. Cycora is cyclic aura combined. And so the idea is when you see the cycora name, hang tag in whatever incarnation, it it starts to generate an interest in what is cycora. And we think that leads people on an educational journey, much like Moby, my co-founder, and I went on when we were starting the company, just to discover what materials are in our closet.
And how have you found that traction? Have you found sort of branding your own yarn or pellet in this case with a particular branded name useful in marketing strategy? Because I found with some previous textile innovators, they can have sort of backlash. People not too sure what the product is, or they don't have time to learn. What has the traction been for you guys so far, for B2B and also B2C? But
Yeah, it's something I think about daily. The fundamental challenge is brand building and developing a brand are intangible assets in nature. And so the measurement of an intangible asset is very different than how you measure technology development or infrastructure development or capital deployment and recovery. Developing a brand essentially takes a lot of time and a lot of thoughtfulness. The first pass analysis of brand building is that it's expensive, which by conventional sense, it can be. You can force your brand to be very large by spending a lot of money, but the way a brand really gets built is by a small community of people that really love what you're doing. And this kind of goes back to how Ambercycle started. Moby, my roommate, and I were just trying to solve this problem for ourselves. And so we're thinking about that from the I'm a person trying to buy a garment that is good. And so developing a small niche base of users over the past 10 years has really set our brand building exercises on the right path. It is going to be hard to determine how successful the brand is today or tomorrow. The challenge with an intangible asset is you have to let it grow over 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And if you think of any major brand that you know or love today, it has a long backstory. And so we think investing today in the development of the brand base will yield a lot of benefits long term because we're going to be successful in developing the technology, building the infrastructure. But in the long term, getting people to actually understand the product is, from the consumer standpoint, the most important thing. And we might not harvest that value today, but developing that foundation is just incredibly important. It's actually the core of what we're doing. Uh, Although many people might not realize that by the activities today, developing the infrastructure and getting the capabilities to produce material at scale built.
Mm. And so to bring that brand story to life and onboard those sort of future clients, B2B or B2C, or even those sort of early adopters, what types of teams have you needed to build? Have you needed to onboard quite a few like design sort of user experience thinkers alongside engineers? Have you all kind of needed to collaborate together in that regard, or has it been very much still led by yourselves and sort of a design and an engineering sort of science team?
It's a really good question. Developing the initial founding team and then the broader team is some of the things that we did very well, I will say, in hindsight. The main thing that we established was a technology foundation. We are technologists. We have a deep understanding of the chemistry, the chemical engineering, as well as the requirements to scale and build the projects. But what we also have is a burning desire to solve this problem. And what I have observed over the years is we have used that same framework to build the initial team, but bringing in expertise from experienced individuals who have done this before in various related sectors. So, sales and marketing, commercial execution, infrastructure development, all to build a team around this central vision. But anchoring to the central vision is the most important thing. So, having a colleague or a partner or an ecosystem supplier have this, okay, I want to solve this problem, and here's the unique skill set I have, has been really helpful. And we've had to build a multidisciplinary team to solve this problem. Oftentimes people think, if you have a technology, how do you force that technology into the world? And that's actually not the way technology should be built. You have to start with that end customer experience and work your way backwards into what the technology should be. Technology oftentimes is viewed as a solution, but it's really a toolkit. And in this technology toolkit, we have a lot of capabilities, but it starts with what the customer experience is, what the fabric should feel like, what types of yarns should be made to make that fabric, and then working back into what raw material sets should be provided and under what conditions should we build something. It is not the right approach to build from a technology first standpoint. It's a customer first standpoint, working backwards.
That's really refreshing to hear from a textile engineering perspective. That's really lovely, because I usually do hear it the other way around, and I'm always approached by engineer scientists saying, "Hey, we got this thing, and what do we do with it?" And I'm like, "Oh no."
Yeah. And I mean, maybe this is the bias that we have because we are technologists, but the deep understanding of technology shows you that in science, chemistry, engineering, anything is possible. Mm-hmm. And you can build a bridge a million different ways, but the specific way you build the bridge is going to depend on what you're trying to solve. What is the actual purpose of what you're trying to build? Because I could sit here for 10 hours and list off a billion ideas that my co-founder, I, and team have, but what's actually useful and what's worth spending time on has customer relevance. That's the most important thing.
And was this route R&D process quite natural for you guys from the beginning, or is this something you had to work out along the way, especially when you're bringing in sort of those specialist minds into the team?
The R&D process is definitely, it comes naturally, especially to my co-founder, who I will share, he's a true genius. And but the R&D process comes naturally. It does require framing as to what direction we want to head in. Developing a metric for R&D is also very hard. There's, over the past 200 years, a lot of case studies around, if you say, hey, I want an innovation, you can't start with that and then go develop the innovation. It has to start naturally. And maybe this is kind of how we got into this, because we were developing the technology and we wanted to solve a problem, but that outsider in perspective for us seems to be different compared to our peers in the industry. But the R&D process, it just has to be appreciated and respected, but then you have to manage it very intentionally, where if you don't, then you can, like I said, like I could list off a million different ideas that are all would sound great, but which ones require the nurturing to then invest in is it's a very intentional and thoughtful exercise, and it requires very little ego, I will say, which is something you need to be able to listen to the different feedback points from customers, supply chain partners, etc., to say, okay, this is actually the thing that is relevant, not the thing that is cool.
Yeah, I actually interesting have some amazing founder friends, I guess that's what they label themselves as, and they literally say the same thing. They have this really cool concept and they talk to their investors and they're like, what about this? And it's this really elasticated language between market research, product application, MVP, the whole work. So it's really yeah, again, inspiring to hear how intuitive your team is and how open-minded your team is as well. I think that's super key. And the role play of the ego, a lot of people don't talk about this and how these different personality types can really drive innovation in a good way, and then sometimes in a not a bad way, but just in a slightly sidetracked way, you could say. So yeah, no, super interesting. So you guys met at university, you and Moby, and how did that sort of relationship come about? You guys were roommates? That sounds very
Yeah,
intense.
we were roommates. We have been roommates for a very long time. So we met in college and
Yeah,
university. Senior year, we would hang out a lot. We were very close friends, and we lived together. And we just talk a lot and hang out. And I was working in a lab, and we would just hang out in the lab before going out and doing whatever. And then
nice.
would just both had a lot of energy around the infinite possibilities of technology, but then also felt like there was a lot of problems that are worth solving. And so we were spending a lot of time after graduation thinking about what are the big problems we want to solve. And for us, this was a very personal problem. Everyone has this little garbage bag of clothing in their closet. And one day we were just talking, and I was just asking Moby, my roommate at the time, what happens to this bag? Where does it go? We started doing a bunch of real research and realized this material mainly goes to landfill. And unlike water bottles or other materials in our lives, this material does not get recycled. And this led to the question, why is that? Why can't we recycle this old material? And at the time, it seemed like a no-brainer. This material is something no one wants. It is extremely low cost, if any. And on the other hand, there are people around us saying, I want to be more sustainable. I want to use products that are better. Brands and retailers probably wanted that too. So it made a lot of logical sense. How can we just turn old t-shirts into new t-shirts? And we weren't really thinking about how we're going to do it, but that was a very clear vision from day one.
Yeah.
We actually never decided to build a company. We just started meandering down what this rabbit hole was, and started and went into the lab, had a good support system from the university, talked to some professors, and they were like, well, we don't know why it doesn't get recycled, uh, but we're fortunate enough to get some lab work done and do some initial experience. Talk to some people in the industry, and they're like, if you could do this, this would be very helpful to us. And so we felt very attached to that problem. And this is like, okay, no matter what happens, we're going to figure this out. And it wasn't a definitive, okay, we'll do what it takes. But at the time, both Moby and I said just implicitly, hey, this is what we're going to figure out. If it takes 1, 2, 5, 10, 20, 30, 50 years,
Wow, okay.
we're going to figure it out. We're going to go all in and just get it done. And so that's still the same energy we have today. And so graduated university, started asking a lot of people for advice and how to get the technology built. We weren't even thinking about a company. It was just, let's try and figure this out and maybe give it to some other company. They can scale it. We didn't have any experience working in 2015. We had no idea what it was to be in the industry or whatever. And so, but that was, I think, a great blessing. Got 2015, got some money together, started asking people, hey, like, we're working on this project. We need 2 giant kitchen pots because we want to mix these things together. And they're like, why? Because, okay, kitchen pots are $30. Glassware for lab is like $800. So just piecing it together, we found a lab space in San Francisco. We were in in Northern California. We found a lab space in San Francisco. This woman was like, okay, I'll rent it out to you for $1,400 a month. We had $8,000 pieced together from a variety of different people and some old lab equipment. So we're like, okay, we have 2 months to figure out this technology. No one else has developed, but we could do it. And so we were living, if you know Northern California, we were living in Fairfield, uh, and essentially commuting in to San Francisco and back every day. So this is 6 hours in a car. So we would wake up at 3:30 in the morning, go to a bus stop, use this sort of casual carpool system where cars can come and use us to go through the carpool lane and we get a free ride into the city. We would get to SF at like 7, work from 7 to 4, go back, sleep a couple hours, and do this. We did this for 4 months straight. Uh,
Wow.
so just trying to
Wow.
develop the initial technology. And I think it was the best time of my life. I mean, we were just so like, okay, learning so much. I feel like in that 4 months we got a PhD, uh, developing lab work, struggling through the process, started to talk to a lot of people in the industry, and that initial 4 months was just, it was incredible. And although we may not have been making the most progress, the foundation for Ambercycle really was built in those 4 months in the end of 2015.
And do you feel those months, that was a really beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. That is, the energy you were giving me was really amazing when you were describing it. Do you think those 4 months were so important to you because they were just so raw and there was no commercial, in a sense, like no commercial overheads needed, no other investors you need to talk to? It was just purely you guys creatively and working out a problem.
I think it was a couple things. The first is that everything people were telling us about why it wouldn't work was not, we could think of ways that doesn't make sense. So a lot of people were saying, oil price per barrel was around $30 a barrel. The commodity price for polymers was quite low. But I mean, naturally, this is a cyclical business. We're at the bottom of the cycle. Okay, prices will rise and fall. The second is there were people in our lives, friends of ours, that wanted this product to exist. And we would tell them about it and they would be stoked. They would be so excited. And so we knew that there was implicit customer demand, but how to link that through the supply chain was totally unknown. Uh, and I think there's also this element of when you're 21 and people are telling you something's impossible, you just want to do
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
And
definitely.
that for us is also like, I think still to this day, it's that feeling is still, it's always going to be in you, especially at that time. If you're like, well, this could be so easy, and
Yeah.
how seeing how that's responded to is just, it is very, uh, yeah, I think it's very motivating.
There's almost like not like an element of naivety in the sense of like if you knew how hard it was going to be, it's kind of almost like nice not to have worked in the industry, nice not to have been tainted by other people, as it were. So yeah,
Yeah.
that age is super refreshing to kickstart things, definitely. So Cycora is your main product, and that is a polyester pellet. Is that correct? And you mentioned earlier that you were also looking at others like nylons, etc., etc. Are these now in commercial production, or are these still in R&D stages?
Yeah. So when we looked at the problem initially, we went into our closets and also looked at what material was there. Polyester is the number one material in fashion. Around 56% of all clothing is polyester. That is growing faster than any other material.
Yeah.
If we roll the clocks forward 20, 30 years, it's easy to see a future where polyester is the main material by far, over 2/3 in our closets. So textile recycling for us really seems like polyester recycling pretty clearly. At the time it did, and that intuition is playing out pretty straightforward over the past 10 years. So we made a good bet there. The focus is on this material because it is the biggest problem. Currently, around, for polyester in a garment, around 10 kilograms of CO2 are emitted per kilo of polyester in your closet. If we can bring that number down to about 2 kilos of CO2, it will become the lowest carbon intensity fiber in the closet. So that would be a great outcome. But what we're trying to do is, we have all these garments. Is there a way we could feed this into a process where all of the materials would be separated and could be reused?
Mhm.
So we're starting with polyester. This is the main material. What we're finding in our feedstock is other materials like nylon, spandex, acrylic, cellulose, all of which we have strong intention to develop into new yarns. We're starting with polyester, but we think the nylon product is very exciting, and we are next year going to be launching a nylon cycora, which is
Oh,
very
exciting.
exciting,
Yeah.
and we think a lot of exciting product applications, etc. The for the polymer experts out there, this is very similar to polyester, and it's very exciting to go into a lot of the technical applications where you can make some really high quality outerwear pieces, some really fine yarns for technical applications. So really a great material to go into some technical pieces, and the team and our brand partners are very excited about that. So start with nylon and then move into spandex, which is third on the list, and we see it a lot in our feedstock streams. We're essentially going to mirror whatever we get in as an input is going to be what we want to generate as an output. So we have the ambition to do the full stack. So nylon, spandex, cellulose, acrylic, etc.
Interesting. Yeah, polyamide is actually one of my favorite synthetic yarns. I'm not allowed to have a favorite synthetic yarn, but that is my favorite synthetic yarn.
You can do things with nylon that are quite
Yeah,
other materials, and
yeah,
it just structurally is a great durable, long lasting material. It creates some really high quality products. It is something that we really want to do because it also faces this problem at its end of life.
yeah, absolutely. And it's amazing to hear that other feedstocks are also being reviewed. I know it does take so much time, like one step after another. Um, I know cellulosics have been looked at quite a bit through like wet spinning applications. So I know that's quite interesting. But there aren't many people who are looking at protein. So I don't know if you guys have looked at protein. What your thoughts on that? You probably depends on how much you can tell me.
Yeah, protein animal fibers is actually quite interesting. It
Yeah,
is a material that we don't see as much in the input stream. Uh, in the overall fiber market, it is relatively small compared to polyester and cotton, which are predominant fibers. So we don't see it as much in the input stream as an input. So maybe people are holding on to their wool sweaters really closely, which is great. And uh, but yeah, I think as we start to continue to fractionate, if we see it in the input, it will become a focus point for our output. So it is also very exciting to see the developments in the protein fiber space as
yeah,
well.
yeah. It's close to my heart, so that hence the question. I'm very curious. Um, I'd be really curious to understand, and depending on how much you can discuss, like the actual tech behind Cycora and why you guys are different to other recycled products, especially in the polyester field out there. I don't know if you want to. Yep, depends how you want to lead that one.
Yeah, so when we started Ambercycle, we wanted to build this thing aptly named the Ambercycler, where we could just throw garments in and get new chips or yarns out. And so that was the whole idea. And so how the process works is we initially started with a biological process where we wanted to develop an enzyme to separate the material. We moved to a fully chemical process in a couple years ago, and the idea is it's a two-step process, very simple. So at about the temperature it takes to cook a pizza, we take all these textiles, put them in stainless steel tanks. Two-step process. The first step turns the polyester into a liquid. The temperature is low enough such that the other fibers remain solid. And so the liquid polyester can be separated from the other solid fibers. The other solid fibers get filtered out and recovered as solid materials that can be reused. Once separated, the liquid polyester, we then remove the dyes, additives, small molecules. If there was orange juice on a t-shirt that went into the process, we're pulling the orange juice off. All that material we separate, and then what we produce is this resin or this chip that has no additives. It's essentially the canvas upon which additional processing can happen, and the whole point of it is to benchmark virgin virgin quality. And so We worked very hard. A lot of my gray hairs are from developing this process of getting the quality to a point where you or I wouldn't be able to tell the difference that the material was made from an end of life textile. And so, doing this on a post consumer garment where there's a bunch of other stuff on it has been what we've really de-risked over the past almost 10 years now. So, doing that at successive scales and yeah, this shirt is 100% cycora, where we are. It's black right now, so if there weren't protections, you couldn't tell. But we've made a lot of great products with a lot of different brands that we're really proud of.
Amazing, and congratulations. Your grey hair looks great, so it's yeah, it was worth it, everything.
Yeah,
And for those who aren't very aware, like the listeners out there who aren't aware of how tough textile recycling is, the main problem I feel like one of the key problems you have mitigated is maintaining the mechanical properties and the strength and like almost the quality of the polyester. And for those who don't realize that when you recycle chemically or even mechanically, especially like the protein roots and cellulose sometimes, a lot of those performances can degrade over time, right? And it's maintaining that performance again and again and again. So you have no need basically to have additives, i.e. virgin additives added to that product, depending on the stage. So yeah, congratulations.
It's definitely a great
Super
moment.
hard.
Like, yeah. I can remember when we made our first garment, it was in 2019 where we weren't asking people for old garments. When we said, hey, we're in business, here's our address in LA, people would send us their old stuff unsolicited. So we had people mailing us, hey, here's our old bathrobes, here's the production waste, we have this giant plant in Central America, here's 2 truckloads of material, unsolicited. Like, we did not ask for this stuff. And we had to tell people, please stop. Like, we don't have space for this. But our first garment that we ever made was with the city of Rotterdam, where the Rotterdam Marathon, there was a bunch of old, maybe unsavory, sweaty jerseys that we got. We built the Ambercycler, which was a small little 50 kilogram per batch thing. And the first day we got it built, instead of testing it on like a model feedstock, we just said, hey, we have all these old garments, let's just put it in and see what happens. And so we made a bike jersey. This was our first material. It's important to note that this material wasn't perfect. There was still some issues with it. The spinability wasn't perfect. The dyeability wasn't great. But I can say, looking back, getting a real product that we could wear, even if it wasn't perfect, was essential to showing people that here's a garment, you can touch and feel it, it's real. And that, if I could go back, getting to that point where it's a real garment, if I could do that sooner, that would be the one real thing that really changed for us. Because, okay, if we could make one garment, then you can see a path to making every garment. And so that for us was really important in 2019. That we still have that bike jersey. It still doesn't fit, still isn't perfect, but it's I think a testament to just, you know, you try to go for what you think should be the end state, and just don't take shortcuts.
Yeah, absolutely. And just rapid prototype all the time, because there's iterations and those changes, especially for, I don't know if you do have investors or not, but like those people who are close to your team can really be inspired by how the acceleration is happening in that product. And that tangible credibility is something is gold, as I'm sure you know. So out of curiosity, what were your sort of toughest technical hurdles, and sort of moving from that lab scale demo to something like a short pilot trial with these jerseys in Rotterdam, and now up to your commercial production? This is the hardest thing, is scaling. No one likes to talk about it. I love it.
I think also, I mean, here the real learning is it does take time, and you can't really take shortcuts. This is the main observation we've had of this space, and then leaning on expertise of people that have done it many times over. The path to scale. So in 2019, we established this small 50 kilogram per batch unit in Los Angeles in our headquarters. We were running it 24/7, just trying to produce initial materials to show brands, supply chain partners. And at that point, when we did that, we then were able to raise our Series A $22 million. This was 2021. Some great investors that were all saying, this is great. We want to make a lot more. I mean, we launched with H&M in 2021, and they basically said, hey, this is great. Can you make more? And so we then went out and built a 2-ton per day facility, so about 6,000 t-shirts a day in Wisconsin, where we were able to find a site that we could work with. There was some existing equipment already in place, and we were able to bring that facility up to production and start making material at the ton level, so 50, 100 tons, where we could then go to supply chain partners and say, commercial runs, we want to run 5 tons, 10 tons, 30 tons yarn spinning to get the quality down and at least show ourselves that this was possible. And then in doing that, show our capital partners, our supply chain partners, and then the brand partners, this is possible. Here's what we're doing. And that process took 2 years to go through. And there's no real way to shortcut that. It just takes time to go through the iteration cycle. We were collecting post-consumer garments in the US. We were collecting in Central America material. You can imagine post-consumer textiles, they have a lot of stuff on them, but the learnings were invaluable. So we have this food chain here in LA, in California, In-N-Out, where we would get old aprons and stuff, and we would shred them and put them in the thing that we just built and start making material and learning through the process. And that was really good. We made hundreds of tons of material, got the supply chain primarily in Asia bought into the material. We got some great commitments, and they were now starting to validate, hey, this material is actually really good. And they started asking us, hey, can you make 3,000 tons, 5,000 tons? And this started to feel, okay, now we have something. This is 2023, the middle of 2023. We did an additional $20 million of capital, and then we started to try and figure out how we were going to scale up the production really to commercial scale. And so the inflection point for us is around 250,000 t-shirts a day. That's where the cost structure, the supply chain, the integration all starts to make sense. And so starting to build that and look for places, and we're just about to announce kind of after 2.5 years of project development what that all is going to look like.
Amazing. My next question was like, when's this going to happen? So yes, this autumn by the sounds of it.
yeah. So very soon, and making sure we have all of our buttons up and making sure that we've really thought through it. We're going to be investing a fair bit of capital into the scale up and going through the process, the engineering process, the supply chain process, the capital development process with a lot of different partners is going to make this somewhat of a marquee project, not just for us, but really for the entire industry.
Amazing. This sounds incredible. And it sounds like, going back to our original conversations about storytelling and marketing, probably inspired these big brands to come on board. And these brands are almost like a key traction in your development, because then they inspire investors to invest, et cetera, and everything's just feeding into each other until you kind of get to this sort of climatic point.
Yeah. And I mean, what we were able to do in 2023, we signed a landmark agreement with Inditex, world's largest apparel company, huge user of fibres. They essentially need to be, them and others need to be essential to the change, where they would start to use some of our chips in commercial volumes, in spec'd-in programs throughout some of the lines. That was really helpful for us and the financial community to understand, okay, if you make this facility, here's actually where the material is going to go. These commitments are essential, and Inditex is a great partner to have. And then what we've been able to do as well is with a lot of other partners sign similar agreements, not just in what I would say the large volume space, but also across the industry. So we have agreements with Arc'teryx in the performance space, Gani in aspiring luxury. What we're seeing is across the different verticals in apparel and fashion interest. which is telling us that it is not just a specific vertical that is interested, but it's a sector transformation. And so, regardless of what happens in the macro environment, we still think it's an upward to the right trend.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's again really inspiring to see innovators such as yourselves being able to scale to that sort of volume, because I found previously that is the hardest part. And then brands, they lose their traction when they can't see the scalability. So you proving that concept was viable, and you've done it, is an absolute incredible achievement. It's so hard to put into words, or yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean the it's kind of like once you develop the technology, it's like now you can start to actually build the company, which is
yeah, interesting.
crazy thing to
Yeah.
think about. Where in most cases, let's say if you're building a software company, you know the code works, so you just have to write it. But in these types of businesses, you have to develop the actual tools before you start building the business, which is a very different framing. And once you do that, then it's a puzzle. You have to put together a lot of different pieces: raw material supply, input supply. If you're going to invest a significant amount of dollars into the ground, if you're going to develop a use case for the business going forward, then you have to really be thoughtful about all the different pieces that have to come together. It's one, once you make the chips, then it's a tiered supply chain. We are a tier 4 supplier, working into an international multi-tiered supply chain that is under constant transformation, as it is tied to a lot of macro events, is definitely something that you have to really spend the time bottom up developing, going to mills, going to factories, meeting the owners, meeting the people, understanding their viewpoint on this, and then getting the buy-in required. It is one in which, if you're looking for airline miles, this is the industry to do it, because it is also very international.
And part of that supply chain, what have you found the most trickiest to navigate? And that's pretty open-ended question. But for instance, is it gathering all the used clothes? I mean, people just sending you stuff by the sounds of it. But I found that the systems in even just textile collections and sorting is just um, phenomenal, and not even super complex. It's just like overwhelming almost. So, how much of an input have you needed to play within each of those different parts?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I like to think of it kind of as this evolving puzzle where there's a bunch of different risk factors that have to be mitigated. The the main thing that is really important to us is getting the unit economics right. The challenge with this space historically has been the unit economics have to match up to what the expectation is from a lot of the supply chain partners, as well as the brands. And so, getting the unit economics question right: what scale is the minimum scale to get the unit economics right? If you mistime this, if you miscalculate this, you could be upside down. And there's a whole host of companies that have not been successful at this in the past. Uh, that is probably the most important thing. So, figuring out what the underlying cost structure is, how to optimize the technology, and then there's a lot of non-technology cost structuring that has to happen. How is the facility going to get built? Who's going to get paid what? What is the incentive structure for on cost, on time? If you've ever built anything in your house, like a kitchen sink, there's cost and schedule is sometimes hard to manage. And so, how best to do this to get capacity built, and then integration, where you're now operating a manufacturing business that has a huge upside, but it is requiring a different type of expertise from the team to then evolve. So then, how do you evolve the team as time goes on? And all these little things are risk factors that have to be mitigated, because what you're trying to do is put together a whole package where the brands, capital partners, employees can all understand, okay, if we can do this one thing, then things start to make sense. And so, um, I think getting the whole package right is essential. It's not just technology. It's not just getting the old clothing. It's not just getting the right supply chain partners. Um, yeah, it's, I would say, I mean, it's everything. If that's a possible answer, that's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially because some smaller brands will need assistance with stuff like that. They can't almost like find the feedstock for you. They need to like almost like work collaboratively together. And how has that been for you as a collaboration between brands? Has, going back to what we were talking about earlier, like the traction, the marketing, the storytelling, has been quite willing from the beginning, or did it take quite a while to onboard those key
Yeah,
players?
it's been an interesting exercise. So as you saw in person, we've downstream integrated into some of the fabrics where we're developing a business model around fabric delivery, which doesn't require us to develop the capital structure to make the fabric, but can work with partners to deliver a solution that meets them at their capability. So if you're a smaller brand, you don't have development capabilities to make, you know, a 50 denier 24 filament double twisted yarn. So uh, how are you going to interface with us if we don't supply a more developed grage fabric or developed fabric, uh, and then also in the right color, quality, quantity, etc. So I think one of the things that we've done really well is develop a supply chain base where we know supply chain partners that if you're looking for, let's say, 100 yards of fabric, we will have partnerships that can supply that material to you. If you're looking for 10,000 yards or 100,000 yards, we have an upstream integrated where we can work with partners to develop yarn or even chip capabilities to meet that demand. I will say each brand is a little bit different. And this talks a little bit to the fragmentation of the apparel industry. It's very large, and there's different requirements. I mean, we can say firsthand, working with large volume big box brands, performance brands, and luxury brands. There's different cost structures. There's different reasons to do each one, and the value that comes from it is pretty accretive. So we found a reason to spread pretty in depth in those three sectors in apparel, and meeting brands where they want to be met is, I think, also a huge unlock.
Yeah, completely. And it's like having that sort of very humanized conversations. Like everyone's trying to do something. It just takes lots of micro steps to get there, and you can't, the first iteration isn't always the winner. You sound very busy. Do you ever have breaks?
I mean, I think this is something I've really struggled with, where everyone around me, I mean, is saying, "Oh, like you're like just relax." But like I love. It's hard to explain. This is what I feel I was put on the earth to do. This is what my co-founder Moby feels like. This is our thing. This is what we do. And so for us, it's like we've never felt any sort of like, okay, this isn't right, this isn't working, this isn't, we're bored, we're whatever. This is this is just what we're going to do. And so uh, basically have to be like unable to work in order to not do this. And it just, I feel every day just really overjoyed to go through, have the opportunity to find a passion and to be able to nurture it for so long. I think it's a true gift.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And you can really sink your teeth into and really have to face challenges that are really difficult. It is an opportunity. It's like it is the best gift in a way to do
Oh,
something very difficult.
oh, that's so lovely to hear. I love that.
So yeah, so I mean,
It's
every
so
day
good.
I mean, different challenges, but
Yeah, that's life.
it's that's life, and
Mm.
it's an opportunity to do something new that you didn't do yesterday. So I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah, you're the textile superheroes. That's what you guys
That's
are.
that's yeah, it's not even like textiles for us is not even what we thought we would be in,
Mm,
because I mean the core of what we do is like we're developing this infrastructure, which is very step by step. It's very methodical. It's very serious. You have to not take shortcuts, but and it's very, what I would say, objective,
mm,
where your binary outcomes versus talking to a lot of my peers and it's a lot of times not friends that are in fashion, uh, where it's like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Oh, the vibe is not right with this. The color is not right with this. It's like a whole different framing that I really enjoy because these are truly creative individuals that are also taking risks on a day-to-day basis with their personal creations, and it's just a great industry. I really, the fashion side of it, when we exhibited on Paris Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, it's great to see the fruits of the labor being exhibited and someone else saying, wow, I can design something and see them overjoyed by it too. It is great to see.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Um, yeah, and that sort of, again, that tangible feedback of understanding fabrics and softness, and you guys probably learning that language from designers and the creatives, must be like really inspiring, and also part of like your toolkit, I guess, as developers. I guess we can like start to wrap up, but I'm really curious to feel or understand. Is there something that you guys feel like there's missing right now in the industry that's almost like a lack, in the sense that, is there more communication, collaboration? Yeah, is there anything that you would love to see more of, if that makes sense?
It's a good question. From our experience, I think there's two things. The first is a lot of these changes that are required, they're very large at the outset. Okay, the industry needs to change. We need to, you know, 0.5 gigatons of climate emissions needs to be reduced by making the switch. We're all going to make it at the same time, and these huge, meaty challenges oftentimes are solved in a step-by-step function over 20 years. And so this change that might happen overnight in the near future is going to be the result of a lot of people working very hard and staying committed over the past 20 years to these problems. And it's not just us, the company developing the innovation, but all of our ecosystem partners who are also personally very invested in the success of this idea. Because it is bigger than just Ambercycle. It is the transformation to circularity. It's an inevitable future, but it does take a lot of time to nurture. And step-by-step progress is really meaningful. And momentum is built by step-by-step progress over long periods of time. So what may be hard to report, maybe to a board or to a supervisor, hey, we're making some progress, isn't as exciting as we did this landmark thing. We're going to do this. It's going to be a huge thing. The step-by-steps are actually what we've seen to be more meaningful in our observation, and the people we respect in this industry also take that approach. So appreciating the journey and the step-by-step process is something that at least we wish was more appreciated. And this kind of goes to the second point, which is, regardless of what's happening, as a person, you have to feel optimistic about the future. And if you don't feel optimistic, then it's how do you square the brackets with like what the purpose of life should be? So that has been a tough question. I've seen people struggle with this question where, okay, if we aren't trying to make a better future, then the world is automatically going to get worse, and you have to work really hard to maintain the status quo. The world just doesn't automatically get better over time. If you don't work very hard, then it actually by default gets worse. And so that is the precedent that we have to continue to maintain. And so that sense of optimism, especially when there's a lot of reasons not to be optimistic, is something that, I think the Ambercycle team naturally has, but in the ecosystem also is something, and that comes from appreciating the step-by-step journey.
I feel like you should be a life coach, I've decided.
I'm going to quote you on that, and when I have my my little retreat thing in Malibu over here, it's like, okay, we're all going to come and we're all going to sit and appreciate. And actually, I think that might be where this all ends. So that could be
that's a nice ending.
Yeah, yeah. So
that was really vulnerable. I really appreciated that answer. And yeah, I think appreciating the small steps and the small wins and celebrating those and keeping that genuine optimism and love for life is super key. Like sort of, in abundance. Yeah. Bringing abundance into the workspace, exactly. Always. Exactly. Meditate on that abundance. That's what I say. That's why I love doing that. But anyway. Thank you so much for today. It was an amazing chat, and it's really insightful to see what Ambercycle is and how you guys got there and where you guys are going to go. And I feel like the next couple of quarters are going to be super exciting for you.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much for the time, Emma. Really appreciate it.
Transcend Matter is a series-based podcast with monthly bonus episodes. We would love you to join our material community, so please do follow us. This will really help spread all the information we have here to a wider audience. We hope you have been inspired and will join us on the next show. This podcast was brought to you by Studio Osmo, bringing together a collection of minds and skills to accelerate future innovation within materials.